Hello, I'm Anya Camau from Anya Camau Fashion Academy. With this lesson, and after many requests of yours, I'm going to show you how you can adapt a bodice block from a size 44 Europe to larger sizes, let's say until about size 50. Now we're going to adjust the shoulder line and the neckline. Here you see that there's a small dart which allows to have a nice fitted garment or a beautiful jacket, giving a rounded shape which will enclose the tip of the shoulder blade. On a bodice block it should be kept, even if you will not use it that much. I then transfer on my new line the length of the former dart, and I keep the same width on the shoulder line. Here you see that nothing has been changed, and here it has been slightly moved at the level of this point. Because it is this line which comes from the waist that will show exactly where this point is located, the shoulder blade point. For the front, we are going to start a little bit in the same way. First, we join the bust point, which we moved before, if you remember, to this point, which is at the half of the shoulder line. You just have to start from this point and, with a ruler, draw the first edge of this dart. Since it's an enlargement, your bust point will move to the side along the bust line, so at the maximum you will get a vertical line. But you mustn't have a line that goes in the other way, which would be really ugly. If you experience this, do not hesitate to move this point on the shoulder line to get a line at least vertical, and even slightly bent to the side, as you see here. It's perfect like this. Now, let's calculate the new value for this chest dart, bust dart. Here we are on a size 44 block, and Elizabeth is 107 at the best, which does not correspond to a size 44. To calculate the new value of this chest dart, we first take the bust measurement here for Elizabeth. It's 107, and apply a proportion rule, which works in general rather well. This proportion says that the dart value is the 12th of the bust measurement. Obviously, the larger the bust measurement is, the more the dart opens, the larger it becomes. For Elizabeth, I find 8.9 cm, which I note here. What does 8.9 cm means? This means that I first extend this shoulder line like this, and I put a point at 8.9 cm. You see, and this is not a surprise, that the dart is much wider, since it will have all this value in addition to the shoulder line. Now that we have set this point, we will be able to join it with Elizabeth's bust point to get this new dart here in red. And now we are able to redraw this shoulder line, since, as you can see, there is a kind of line break at the top of the old dart we have to redraw as well. We have first to figure out how this shoulder dart will close upon itself, and to do that we cut here a along the bust line to be able to fold the paper as if we were closing this dot on a fabric piece. Once folded, we will redraw this shoulder line. I show you how to fold the paper, first by cutting along there, along this bust line. Don't worry, we will join all with adhesive tape later on. Now this part is free. I'm going to fold here on the first side of the dot, the one that is close to the neck and to the front middle. It's not very easy to make it flat, but we can do it anyway. You see that I fold along the line and that I must stop folding at bust point. So now I place my finger here to avoid folding too much. And I rotate with the paper until I close this dot, exactly like you would do it with your sewing machine. We can see now that the lines no longer correspond at all. This is why I take my ruler and go straight, tracing, extending the first part of this shoulder line. Now, when I open this new shoulder dart again, I can see the second part of my shoulder line, which will replace the one of size 44, which was like this. You see that the more this dart gets bigger, the more this line will go down like this. To get this kind of little peak, I just have to extend my second part of the line like this. Here I have the folding mark on the paper, which you cannot see on your screen, but it's just there, and I only have to join here and here to get done with my new shoulder dart, with the first half of shoulder line here and the second half of the shoulder line there. I'm now sticking everything together so that it does not move anymore, because I no longer need to fold this paper again. Here, the shoulder is completely drawn, and we are going to adjust the neckline. If necessary, could be not necessary according to your measurements, then I will also redraw this line. I do not advise you to touch this line. It should normally fall approximately well on you during your fitting. At worst, it could be necessary if you are not comfortable with your neckline, but you'd have to slightly go down here to gain a little comfort at the level of the neck. But try not to move this point there. On the other hand, depending on your morphology, you may need more space for your neck, in which case you could slightly enlarge there. It's the neckline and not a collar line, so it's the tiniest line around the neck you could have while it remains comfortable and does not bother you to move or breathe. It's of course a bodice block, that is to say done upon your exact morphology without any ease and without added volume. Here, To draw the armhole, you first set the shoulder point at the tip of the shoulder. For standard measures, the shoulder for a woman is 12.5 cm long. Maybe on you it will be about 13 cm, but I do not advise you to go further. The point of the shoulder is not the edge of the arm, it's just where the armhole seam will pass through to follow the entire curve of the armhole. Here I find 6.2 cm in the case of Elizabeth, who is not very tall. I do not think that she's very broad of shoulder, and I will keep on with 12.5 cm. So with 6.2 on the first part, I have 6.3 cm left to reach the new shoulder point, just there. The all point from size 44, which becomes Elizabeth's shoulder point there. Here I also need two other measurements. First you see the underarm, which, if you move it horizontally from its old location, arrives here. It is possible that for Elizabeth, to give her more comfort, this point could bother her, that is to say, come too high under her arm, with a feeling of unease. For this bodice block, as we are on a relatively large enlargement, I recommend that Elizabeth's underarm should be put down by 1 cm to gain her a little comfort under the arm. Do not lower too much that point, because if set too much lower under the arm, you won't be able to raise your arm easily with the sleeve of the garment attached. You will find yourself trapped in your garment. This underarm point needs to be relatively high under the arm, so that once the sleeve is sewn on, you can move your arm up freely. Here you have the point, the cross front point. This point normally goes out by 0.25 cm or a quarter of centimeter for each superior size. From our 44 size, according to Elizabeth's measurement, we are rather on a size 48, maybe a little more. Thus, I assume I go for an enlargement of twice a quarter of centimeter, that is adding 0.5 cm, since I go from 44 to 48. And I set a new point here. You need to keep this line with an indentation, whatever are your own measurements. Now we're going to redraw this armhole line. We start perpendicular to the shoulder point, like this, and we'll join the underarm point perpendicularly like this, going through the cross front point. Here it's important to stay flat, perpendicular, for at least 2 cm. It's also important to bring comfort, and you see that I set a small point at 2 cm to remember. I take my French curves and I try to make the most harmonious line I could to join all these points, while keeping carefully all that I stated before, that is to say, I keep 2 cm flat under the arm, climb here to join there, and then continue towards the shoulder to get here at the shoulder perpendicularly. You see that I draw my line in small sections, and afterwards I just need to join them. I erase slightly this angle, and here is the new armhole line. Now on the back, since I have kept 12.5 cm shoulder, which are already in place, I will not touch it. However, since here I went down by 1 cm at the front, I will do the same on the back and go down by 1 centimeter. You see that the cross back from my all point arrives there and that I go down 1 centimeter. Also in the middle, I will stand out by 0.5 centimeter, which is in general the enlargement in the middle for two sizes, so to go from 44 to a 48. And I draw my line in the same way, but on the back it's enough to remain flat for 1 centimeter at the underarm and not 2 centimeters. For a question of comfort as well, because of the movement of the arm in the back, which is very different in the back from the front. At the shoulder point, which is already as its right angle drawn, I keep all like this. With my French curves, I try to find the best curve to join all my points as well, the most harmonious line as possible. Here is this new armhole line at the back. The bodice block has now been entirely drawn anew according to Elizabeth's measurements. But to get it really perfect, I advise you to cut this block down in an inexpensive fabric or scrap that you would have at home, a cotton fabric non-stretch, then make a quick sewing and eventually a careful fitting to see if there would still be some small adjustment to be done. You should find this block fitting well to your body shape. Here we are at the end of the adjustment of the bodice block from size 44 to a larger size. Here we are at the end of the adjustment of the bodice block from a size 44 to a larger size, and above all to your own true size according to your measurements. As you can see, it's not that simple, but if you follow this video carefully step by step, line after line, and just do the same at home with your own measurements, you can do it, I'm sure. Remember that you can always contact me using the form that you find quite everywhere on my blog, anyacamau.academy, and send me your questions. If you're stuck, I will try to help you out as best as I can. Don't hesitate to send me pictures so that I can understand your issue.